Hello, hello, hello! I'm back! Yesterday, I played through all of South of Midnight, and I have some thoughts. So instead of sitting here and wasting your time with some stupid intro, let's just get into it! So the story centers around Hazel, the main character, trying to find her mother, who was swept away in a hurricane in her house. She should be dead, but she's not. Listen, a lot of mythical things happen in this game. I'm not complaining. I don't like seeing mothers die. Throughout the game, you'll find these strands, which are like mini stories where you watch ghosts talk. They're always centered around whatever big creature or folklore kind of thing you have to tackle in that chapter or series of chapters. I liked them for that and that alone. I liked that the creatures would have backstories of how they became that way, but the actual stories themselves, none of them really interested me. Each of them were centered around trauma, and I'm not a very emotionally driven person, so those stories never resonated with me, and it's no different here. Maybe if you're into trauma, I'm not. So now when it comes to the characters, Hazel, the main character, I was not expecting her to be so likable to me, but she was one of the highlights of the game. She has that kind of common archetype. Oh, no. That didn't just happen. You know, that kind of, did a bird just talk to me? That kind of thing. It's more at the start, and as things get crazier and crazier, she kind of stops, which is good. You know, saying it every single time when crazy things keep happening, it's like, all right, bro, I think we get it now. But it felt really natural to her character. The line delivery was very good. I think the voice actress did a very good job, and she was just charming the whole way through. I really liked her character. The mom was all right. You know, she was just a good mom. She didn't have that much depth to her. Throughout the game, you'll find these like memories of her talking about her struggle with maybe raising her child, or I didn't really gain much from any of those, but how can you not like a good mother, you know? Now, I do have to point out one thing in the story which pissed me off, and that was Laurent, okay? So Laurent is Hazel's biological father, and he abandoned her and her mother because he had some really bad childhood trauma. Look, bro, if you want to talk about trauma, sure. But if you're going to abandon your family over some shit that happened in your childhood, I don't care how fucked up it is. If it's going to be that fucked up where you abandon your family, don't start a family in the first place. And she's just like fine with it after she discovers his backstory. It was really poorly done and stupid. The main villain of the story was just not compelling at all and predictable, like comic book level villain stuff. You know, it was, her motivation made sense, I guess, but she just wasn't compelling. And everyone else was kind of forgettable. I guess the catfish was cool and Crouton was cute, but it's not like he's really a character. He's just a little stuffed animal. But Hazel was one of the highlights of the game for me. Now, the gameplay is kind of where it falls short. The combat is just bad, not even serviceable, bad. Every time I ran into a combat encounter, I wished I didn't. That's pretty crazy, you know, because I'm a big combat guy, but when it comes to games like this, I'm not going in expecting crazy good combat. I'm just expecting something that at least doesn't get repetitive and is good enough to do the job, and this got very repetitive after the first encounter. First of all, it just lacks the style the rest of the game has. It felt pretty disconnected, and the combat mechanics themselves, you know, the dodge felt bad. That has a perfect dodge, but a lot of times the perfect dodge would go off when I dodge before the attack even starts, or like when he has his hand up before he starts even moving it down to smack me. The attacks just didn't feel good. They would start an uninterruptible attack, which are just like big damage dealing moves you just have to get out of the way of, and all I would do was dodge away, and that was it. There was nothing you could do, no special ability you could use to stop that attack. It was just kind of stupid. There's a good amount of enemies, but none of them really feel all that different. The most different feeling one being this guy that shields other enemies, so you just take him out first. And then I guess there's this bee's nest kind of enemy where you can pull out a bee and shoot it back to do damage. I think if every enemy had some sort of way to interact with them, it would have made it much more interesting, but there's only a couple of those, and the rest you just kind of spam X on. Just very bad all around. I honestly would have rathered if combat was only used for bosses and that's it. Speaking of the boss fights, they were cool for the set pieces, and that's pretty much it. The fights were not that interesting, but they did the job. Honestly, I would suggest going through this game on the easiest difficulty, and I don't think you'll regret it. They just kind of felt like filler and a waste of time. All right, now for the platforming and exploration. The actual platforming movements felt pretty fluid, and I liked using the glider and the double jump. But when I would try to latch onto a ledge or something, a lot of times it just wouldn't latch on. It was very stubborn, and that happened a lot throughout the game, and it was annoying. It also didn't pose any real challenge mentally or physically. All the platforming was easy, and none of the puzzles were hard, so you know. It sounds like I really didn't like this game, man. Also, there would be these running sequences from this fog, and it always felt you were supposed to have some sort of fear and really book it, but they never had any tension. Like, the music would be playing. The music sounded like it wanted you to be tense. You would not be tense. Those were the easiest things I've ever done in my life. And also, those areas were very visually unappealing. They're also like hazards, but there are very few of them. Like, there are mushrooms that are just annoying. You just click RT on them and then they explode, but a lot of times I don't even see them, so I'll just hit them and take some damage, and it's whatever. And then there are bushes that'll burst into spikes every once in a while that are just annoying. That's pretty much all they did, was annoy me and not really cause me to play any different. So also, way too many hints. Every time there would be a hole for Crouton, this little stuffed animal that could access smaller areas. Every time there was one, I would see it, and then it would tell me, hey, press RB to do this. Every time I was wall running, it was, hey, use the right stick to go up and down. Every time you would do something where they created some specific mechanic, they would tell you every single time. Why? I don't know. It was stupid and annoying. That brings me to the other highlight of the game, which was the art design and the soundtrack. The world was really beautiful, and coming from someone who does not live in the South, hasn't even been to the South, it felt like it represented the South pretty well. I liked the character design. It was unique. I liked it for the most part, I should say. The mom looked really weird. I don't know why she looked like that, but otherwise, I can't think of anyone that looked particularly bad. It was mostly good. I liked the style. The enemy design was bad. I would notice that sometimes when a new enemy would come up, it would tell me there's some sort of lore you can read about. Why would I want to read about lore when they look like that, dude? I do not get. They have to look cool for me to want to read about the lore, bro. I feel like there was a missed opportunity with how they could have designed them. Like, I feel like there should be some sort of southern creatures or folklore tales that you could have implemented where regular enemies, each of them were some unique kind of southern folklore or creature. But no, they all kind of looked the same. They were like different shaped wood guys or something. Very lame. But the boss design was good. Each of the boss creatures were really cool looking. I liked all of them. Also, the music was really good throughout the game. There were a couple tracks where I was like, bro, what the hell are you talking about? Like, I mean, each of the boss tracks would kind of just say what the story you just experienced was. Like, that's what the lyrics would be. But most of the time, the music was really good, and it was one of the highlights for me. Also, the jazz in one of the later chapters. Very nice. Gotta love some jazz. So, after all of that, you would probably say this guy did not like that game. But I played it on Game Pass, so that helps. Specifically, Hazel and the art design and exploring the world were the highlights for me, and it made my experience more positive than negative. I really think if they removed the combat almost entirely and refined some of the platforming a little bit, maybe added some extra challenge in there, this game would have been much better. I think the combat specifically weighed it down a lot for me, because every time I ran into an encounter, I just sighed and trudged through it, and then I went on and would enjoy myself, and then I ran into another combat encounter. I also think that the Strands stories could have been done better, maybe implement them more into the actual gameplay. Like, sometimes you would experience them while moving through the world, which was a lot less pace breaking. Also, I think if they explored more of Hazel's relationship with her mother, would have been more interesting, but they went the path they wanted to go, and maybe people who like stories about trauma will like it. Maybe it just isn't for me, but I didn't enjoy it. Either way, for me, the positives of this game outweighed the negatives, and I left feeling mostly positive about South of Midnight. First review ever done. I wanted to review this game because I've never reviewed a game before, and I'd rather do a bad job at reviewing a game I don't care all that much about than do a bad job reviewing a game I do care about, or maybe I have some sort of controversial opinion about a popular game, something like that. I want to be able to represent my opinions well, and I think that comes with practice. So here's practice session number 1, you know? I really could use some constructive criticism here. I'm sure I'll give myself a lot, but maybe you noticed some flaw that I didn't. So any criticisms, let me know. If you like a specific element, let me know. I'm not good at outros, so goodbye.